call this meeting, excuse me, this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7 p.m. Could you please call the roll?
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Rollins?
Here.
Ms. Mohammed?
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Connor? Ms. Stanford? With 5 present, 2 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now take a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. As we start each board meeting, it bears reminding and repeating that the mission of the Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in a first-class education for a changing world. And before we go any further, I'd like to thank Connor Childers. He's working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube live stream and Comcast Channel 20. I'd also like to welcome the SSAC student representative, and pronounce your name for everyone again, please.
Hi, I'm Joaria Zuhorla.
Thank you so much, and we're glad to have you back. We're now at the petitions and communication portion of our meeting, when we invite the public to make comment. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the right of citizens to petition their government, as well as provides for freedom of speech. Also, the Illinois School Code requires there be a time at regular and special meetings for public comment. Thus, we are following those mandates during this petitions and communications portion of our agenda. According to Board Policy 2.230, the public comments portion of the meeting is limited to a total of 30 minutes. The board will not respond to the comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you will be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your questions. In order to allow sufficient time for the business of the board and to conduct our meetings in an efficient and effective manner, we're requesting that you comply with the guidelines that are posted. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. We have 10 speakers, so we're not limited to less than 2 minutes. It is not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in such open meetings. 2 names will be called at one time: the one whose turn it is to speak and the person who will speak next. When you are the second person, please come to the front and sit in a vacant chair. That way we'll be able to devote the maximum amount of time to public comment. If you look up to your left, you'll see 2 digital clocks. One shows the total time allotted to public comment, and one shows the total time for each speaker. We thank you for your interest and your cooperation with our guidelines. Our other guideline is that if you are speaking, you must continue to wear your mask appropriately, covering your nose as well as your mouth and under your chin. Our first speaker is Genesis Burns. Did I mispronounce that? Okay. And then a second speaker tonight will be Kenya Parks Collins. So is the light on for the microphone for her? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Genesis Burris. 1 week ago today, there was a school shooting at Auburn High School in which 2 students were injured. I personally was coming back from my off-campus class around the time where it happened, and on the way we saw 2 police cars speeding towards the direction of Auburn. We already assumed where they were going, but we did not know the cause of what was happening. My classmates and I, when we arrived at the school, were dropped off right at the entrance of the parking lot, and the bus driver did not pull us all the way in. The school originally did not intend to let us in, and all we could see were ambulances, caution tape around the parking lot, and a lot of police cars. It's very cold. very cold right now. On that day, I remember it being very cold and being a little worried about whether or not I was going to be allowed in to what I considered safety. They originally told us, no, you cannot come in. It's a hard lockdown. The policies are no one in, no one out. We could not cross the parking lot. We didn't know how it would be if they saw 3 teenagers, after already not knowing the situation, walk towards the squad of police cars. All throughout the year, we had been having drills, lockdowns, and it almost felt as if we were being prepared for the situation instead of it being prevented. I almost wonder if one of the protocols that was newly added was instead of saying that you cannot come back in if you leave for lunch, I almost wondered if those 2 kids would have been safe inside of the school where they could not have gotten shot if they had been allowed in.
Thank you. Your time is up. Okay. We'd really appreciate your hearing your words. So Kenya Parks Collins, followed by, oh goodness, Tyjon James. And please correct me when you get up here. If I've said the name incorrectly, I apologize. Kenya?
Hi, many of you may know me by now. My name is Kanaya Price Collins. I'm a junior at Guilford High School, and I'm here to remind you of the discipline talk we had on November 16th. The discipline is not aimed to make students better or to help the students. The discipline is aimed to set students up for failure. It's been over a month, and I still haven't heard from the school board. I said I'll keep coming, and I will. The more time you give me, the more I have to think. We also need teachers to be held accountable for their actions. There's a lot of teachers who have been using microaggression, has been really cruel, and it's not just at Guilford, it's at Auburn, it's at all of the schools in the district, and the students should feel comfortable talking to administration and knowing something will happen. These teachers are doing these things and they're not getting disciplined, and they have this higher power, and they just have this, they're just entitled, and they feel like they can say what they want and they can do what they want, because if they're not going to be disciplined, they can. And the more we allow it, the worse it will get, and students react, and then the students get disciplined for reacting. But it wouldn't be an issue if the teachers were held accountable, and instead of being so entitled and thinking that they just have this much power and they deserve respect, instead of giving it to the students, because we also deserve respect. We also come to school. We all come to school to learn or to teach, whatever it is. We all have a job to do that. And when we try to do that and we have teachers who uses microaggression, which is not okay, they know it's not okay, but if they're going to act like it's not okay, then it's up to you guys to educate them. We need more educated educators. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyjon James, followed by Paul Picker.
Hello, it's Tajiana James. I'm a senior at Roosevelt High School, and I am very distraught with the choices that Auburn administration has chosen to take in place with this shooting. Why are we banning hoodies and coats when it's cold outside, and why is that the only method to prevent stuff like this from happening? And what other plans or what steps have y'all and everyone that's a part of the administration, what's happening next? And how can we prevent something like this to make it safe for the students? Because I know I have a lot of peers and family members that goes to Auburn. And why wasn't there more security, police officers? I know the police cars was empty. And I feel like it was very targeted for them banning hoodies and coats. It was very targeted towards black students. Why are we punishing students of the choices of the few who chose to make them choices? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Paul Picker, followed by Andrew Smith.
Hi. My name is Paul Pickerel, and I've been an English teacher at Auburn High School for 5 years. I love my students more than anything, and I am absolutely confident that if they were asked, they would tell you that they know that I love them and that I would do anything for them. I believe that if it takes a village to raise a child, then it also takes a village to fail one. The problems that are in our buildings have causes that come outside of the building. As an English teacher, I have read a significant amount of personal narratives over the years of students who are neglected, who are abused, who have witnessed unspeakable violence. They come to us carrying this trauma, and then we have the audacity to wonder why failure rates are so high and graduation rates are so low. We cannot solve problems that have causes outside of our schools, nor should we be expected to. Or I should say, we cannot be the only ones expected to, especially with so little outside support. As the school year began, we had a significant increase in aggressive behavior, fights, and group violence. As faculty were raising legitimate questions, concerns, and fears during meetings we had as a staff, we were told that we had requested additional security. I do not know what happened with these requests, but I do know that we did not see an additional security presence. After the shooting, we were told that there would be an additional security presence at Auburn. We had additional security for a few days, but now as of this week, we are back to the status quo. So I'm asking the school board and this community, please do the following. Be seen in our buildings. Come and stand in the halls during a passing period and talk to our students. Better yet, listen to them. Truly listen to their thoughts and feelings and concerns. And do not just brush them aside because, well, teenagers are just more dramatic and emotional. Do the same for staff. And do not dismiss our concerns because, well, everyone in education is burnt out right now. Admin types are always preaching self-care, but we don't really need to take care of ourselves right now. We need you to help take care of us. And please make the above two items continual and not just something that happens in the short term.
Thank you. And thank you for your work teaching our students. Let's see. So Andrew Smith followed by Terry Gano.
My name is Andrew Smith, and I've had the pleasure of teaching at Auburn High School since January 2012. I wanted to speak tonight not about what happened last Tuesday, but what has happened since. Wednesday morning, our staff found ourselves facing our students with only the information that we saw on the news or watched at the press conference. None of us had time to process what happened less than 24 hours ago, let alone come up with a coherent message to our students that could assure them that they would be safe at Auburn High School. I'm sure many did what I did Wednesday, tried to offer a space for our students to talk or be listened to, but I felt lost and ashamed I didn't have something better for the few students who showed up on Wednesday. Our school had counselors in the library and lounge for our students and staff, but most of the teachers I know didn't have a free period as we subbed for our colleagues who couldn't be there. In fairness, there were some folks from our administration building there too. Thank you for those that showed up. By Thursday, however, those supports were gone. We had a few extra admin and police officers in the building, but still no time to process as a staff. Still no time to build a coherent message to our students, and we were left again to sub for the colleagues who couldn't be there. By Friday, it was completely business as usual. No signs of any support and a greater feeling of loss. By Friday, most teachers I talked with mentioned a feeling of abandonment. It felt as if the message to our students and staff was to figure out the way forward on your own or to just forget what happened. The events that took place are horrific, and the effects will last our entire lifetimes. I feel for every student that no longer feels safe in our buildings. I wish our district had a better plan for us in the wake of this tragedy. I wish we were given time as a staff to grieve, create a better plan for our students, and try our best to execute that plan. It saddens me we were not given enough, even a half day, to figure this out. It saddens me that 2 days later, we were back to business as usual. It saddens me that to everyone I've talked to, that they're shocked that this was our response. It saddens me that I have to answer my students many questions with, I don't know, when they ask why and what next. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, followed by Angel Brown.
Good evening. My name is Terry Gano, and I'm a retired RPS teacher. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about the lack of black teachers in District 205 and the impact that has on our students, especially our black male students. In 2017, Johns Hopkins University released a study that focused on the impact black teachers have on their black students in the early elementary grades. The study found that among persistently low income black males, having only one black teacher in grades 3 through 5, Those students are 39% less likely to drop out of high school and 29% more likely to pursue a college education. Other research shows that black students who have teachers that look like them are less likely to be suspended, receive exclusionary discipline, be chronically absent, and more likely to score higher on standardized tests. The impact of black teachers is not limited solely to black students. White students benefit by encountering black persons who are knowledgeable or in positions of power. They change preconceived stereotyping convictions and learn how to deal with persons unlike themselves when they go off to college. Recent data from the RPS District Report Card shows that over the last decade, the percentage of black teachers in the Rockford Public Schools has actually declined over that time period, from 5% in the first half of the decade to 4% in the second half. Today, that 4% equates to 66 black teachers out of the 1,663 in the district for over 26,000 students spread over the 39 schools. This is occurring at a time when there's been a major shift in the demographics of the student body nationally and in RPS schools. Currently, the majority of students in RPS are students of color. 30.5% are black, 29.7% are Hispanic, 28% are white, and 4% are Asian. For the benefit of the community of Rockford and the students in the RPS schools, the recruitment, mentoring, and retention of black teachers must become a greater priority within the Rockford School District.
Angel Brown, followed by Fanny Owens.
Hello, my name is Angel Brown, and the reason that I'm here is because on November 20th, 2019, it's still unjustified to me that my daughter was able to have 3 fights in one day, and I was there to separate these girls from off my daughter, and the police was called on me because it was no one out there to keep my daughter safe. So you have all these different things in the book say local parentage, not to be intimidated, and I was intimidated by a principal that is still employed there. What if my daughter was stabbed and killed? What if I went to jail? Is that okay? I was on a mental battlefield for almost 2 years straight. Do you understand how that feels to go through this and no one could call me and tell me anything or just sweep it under the rug like it's okay? It's not okay, because I was mentally impaired by this. My daughter's soul was left at that school and nobody do anything about it. What? Oh, you changed the bus route, moved the buses back, and just how it's okay for a teacher, for a principal to be there because they have their credentials and they don't care about kids. If you have your credentials, that's okay, but for us to have a leader, they have to have more than credentials. They have to have passion, they have to have dignity, and they have to have respect. And if they don't have dignity, passion, and respect, why are you hiring them? These kids is acting out because just like a kid can feel how a person don't care about them, not kids, but teenagers could feel if they're not wanted and they're not cared for. So why would you still employ a person that don't care? It makes no sense. Very disrespectful. What are we going to do? How about putting some debates up in these classrooms and teach these kids how to have a logical argument without fighting it? Teach them to disagree and agree but still respect one another. How about that? It's so sad.
Thank you.
Okay, and somebody could please tell me, why was my daughter not safe? Thank you.
Thank you. Fanny Owens, followed by Rick Elston. Is Fanny here? Oh.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Fanny Owens. I'm a retired social worker monitor. At the last December 14, 2021 school board meeting, it was announced that 110 students were either expelled or assigned to EIA. RSP past data demonstrates that a very troubling racial disparity among students who received the punishment. And we just want to be told the racial breakdown of these 110 students. While 31.7% of the district students' populations are African American. In 2020 school year, 66 were expelled students, and 56% of those were sent to EIA were African Americans. While the total number of students expelled or sent to EIA for the 2021 year was much lower, 80% of those expelled and 60% of those sent to EIA were African Americans. Also, I think you have handouts and you can see the charts. We're trying to understand the reasons behind the most recent disciplinary actions and are requesting answers and explanation to the following questions. What was the cause? Number one was, what was the cause of each of the discipline actions? Guns, drugs, or fighting? Two, where did the event requiring discipline happen? When did the event happen? Would that information suggest where support should be targeted? Number three, what other options might there be available to the students, including a referral to either a counseling facility, drug rehabilitation programs just for family counseling and their children? Is it possible that one solution would be to place some students in a smaller, more supportive school environment, like Roosevelt is an example of a successful, smaller alternative school? Has the district considered creating additional smaller middle and high school students that could enroll in as an alternative as opposed to the larger and impersonal secondary school?
I'm sorry, your time is up, but we do have your suggestions.
You have it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Rick Elston, and I'm an RPS 205 graduate, and I started working in the district in '94, and I've been a teacher at Guilford since 1999. Your story really upset me. I'm in 106 Front Hall if you ever want to swing by and talk, okay? I'm here, though, to talk about the COVID mitigation strategies, and I know that we need to be in person. I support that. My last year was the most difficult for me, more difficult than my first year, and I know I was ineffective, but I think we need to do it as safely as possible. I also know our guidance from the government and how to do that in our schools has to change as the pandemic has evolved. But one thing that has stayed the same in those recommendations is levels and layers of mitigation. And I think we need more levels and more layers of mitigation. So the first thing I just want to mention is that we need to do three things, and I think we need to do them fairly soon. In fact, I would urge you to even consider suspending your rules and taking action as an admin team and as a board tonight. We are in a public health crisis. That's not my opinion. That's what the mayor said today. That's what the director of the Winnebago County Health Department has said, and that is also what the state has said. And we need to act like it is a crisis. So the three things we need to do immediately: we need to get N95 masks for staff and students. We need to get them, and we need to get them in the buildings now. Chicago Public Schools are doing it. If they can do it, we can do it. The second thing we need to do, and we need to do immediately, is we need to get a better or a real surveillance testing system. We keep saying it's not spreading in the schools. We don't know. You don't know because you're not doing surveillance testing. We have to be testing a certain amount of staff and students regularly so we know if it's in the schools and if it's higher or lower than in the community. And that's two of the things we need to do. The third thing we need to do is replace the ineffective sanitizer we're using with Clorox wipes. It requires 4 minutes on the hard surfaces. That's impossible in a 5-minute passing period. You need to get Clorox wipes into those buildings so we can wipe down the surfaces and keep us as safe as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our last speaker, is Brooke Imbach.
Good evening. My name is Brooke Imbach, and I'm the librarian and teacher technology support specialist at Kennedy Middle School. I'm also the parent of a first grade student at Spring Creek. This is my 6th year at Kennedy, and I'm currently part of my school's leadership team and school improvement team. I have previously served on the middle school ELA curriculum leadership team. I do all of these things because I want the best for Kennedy and the best for RPS students. Yesterday, we had 10 teachers out and an additional 5 staff members gone as well. The KMS administration and staff pulled together and made sure that there was a plan for coverage that didn't overwhelm teachers. With less than an hour's notice, the staff lived up to our motto, whatever it takes. I love my job. I enjoy going to Kennedy every day and love the staff and students I work with. I also care about the community I serve. However, this year it has been hard to express the same enthusiasm for the district. It feels like the district is gaslighting its employees. To be told to carry on with business as usual and get, quote, creative with the scheduling when there are mass student and staff absences makes it seem like the district recognizes there are issues but hasn't given schools an effective solution beyond tonight's agenda item to increase the pay for missed planning periods. I am asking the board and district administration to take the following 2 courses of action. 1, use whatever power you have to encourage Governor Pritzker to sign HB 2778, which is the COVID sick day relief bill for educational staff. This would provide a big relief financially and emotionally to all staff members, especially those who have had to miss work multiple times to quarantine with children or others they take care of. 2, yesterday it was communicated to staff in the community that the district has no plans to close, but individual schools may shift to remote learning if necessary. Please clearly define what those metrics are to close a building. Is it based on staff outages, student outages, both, or something else?
Thank you.
Having clearly defined metrics allows everyone to prepare.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone who came out in the cold and took the time to prepare your remarks, and for everyone who's trying to impact our students in the best way. We really appreciate hearing from you. We're now on to board member comments. Do we have any board members who would like to make any comments this evening? Ms. Pearson?
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank the community for coming out. It is refreshing to see community engagement. I can't stress enough how important that is. We are dealing with a double-edged sword, and that we need our students in school and we need our students safe. And the big question is, what does that look like? So we have policies in place for weapons, but the weapon of COVID and all of its variants, we have not given enough attention to. And so what I'm hearing is there is a cry to HR, and it is important that HR hear the cry and respond. And it is so important because we are all, believe it or not, in this together. And we are all going to be affected one way or the other, whether it is an individual experience, a loved one, but we have to make some very difficult decisions to keep our students safe on every level. I certainly hope that we have heard our students, and I would love to see and special accommodations made to our students who desire to speak. This has been a long time coming, and we want to keep them encouraged, and we want to be able to hear them. So that is something that I'm asking that we give consideration to, and giving our students a little longer to be able to express themselves. Again, let's work together and do what we need to do to keep our schools safe. Thank you.
Are there any other board members who wish to make any comments? Ms. Mohammed.
Yes, I just want to add that I share Ms. Pearson's sentiments. I also am very grateful for the community presence that is here at tonight's board meeting. And I also appreciate that not only did you all use this as an opportunity to have your voices heard, but there were a lot of solutions that were given to us tonight as well. And I think that this is a great opportunity for administration to not only take into account what was brought forth tonight, but to also make sure that we're following up to make sure that we are letting people know that not only are your voices valued, but we're going to also include you in the decision-making process because you guys are the ones that have to execute what's coming from the top. So again, thank you all for coming tonight, and I look forward to seeing you guys coming to future meetings.
Mr. Siegel?
Thank you. Also grateful for the presence tonight at the meeting, to hear people expressing their opinions and positions on how the school district can operate better. I also appreciate people reaching out in response to some of the changes that happened at Auburn following the shooting last Tuesday. While there were some great suggestions made, and we can see that the decisions that were made changed. They modulated. I guess in the education world, we'd call this a growth mindset. If we haven't grown enough, I'm sorry. I'm hoping that things will continue to improve. But we are definitely working, listening, and trying to make the best decisions. It's not frequent that RPS has a shooting on its grounds. I'm not sure when the last time it happened. But we are trying, and I do appreciate the feedback, and I do appreciate watching things evolve. I got to address a couple of things that are going to be brought up later on tonight. The school district is going to make investments with money, time, energy, in addressing a lot of the issues that people have been bringing up tonight, not only down to the elementary level, but down to age 0. We are going to be partnering with community members and with some of our partners across the country who are going to help us address a lot of the issues that are causing a lot of our behavior issues. Whether it's dealing with UCLA and our early childhood instrument or early development instrument, whether we're providing more mental health access through Teledoc, whether we're going to have a greater presence with Rosecrans in support of our students. There are some significant efforts and investments being made. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know, probably not. Could we have been doing a whole lot more all along? Sure. But we're not going to just sit on our hands and watch a tragedy occur. We're not going to wait for the next tragedy to occur to try and refine our policies. We're going to be working on these things now and continuously. And I hope that we can move forward with a little bit of understanding towards one another. This is maybe the most difficult part of dealing with all of this. Yeah, we got the violence, we got COVID, we've had so many stresses over the last 3 years. Everybody's worn out. Teacher shortage, bus driver shortage, missed bus routes. Kids not making it to school for a variety of reasons. Somehow, somewhere, we need to introduce a little bit of grace, a little bit of understanding, some kindness, something that's a little more tender, and figure out how we can work together. We are not going to insult our way to a better culture and climate. We are not going to yell our way there. Somehow we got to just figure out how we can talk to one another and listen to one another. And I think that's going to be the basis, our foundation of making more progress. Thank you.
Mr. Rollins.
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat some themes here, but I'm going to start off by, and I don't know if this is common knowledge or not, 4 of us have kids at Auburn now. So 4 of us had kids at Auburn last week. And, you know, our phones were blowing up. Texts, emails, calls from the superintendent. We do need to figure out a way to keep kids safe. You know, I want my kid to be safe. Other parents want their kids to be safe. The stuff that's happening, as people have said, are being brought in from outside. This is coming to us from the community. And there's some expectation that the schools are going to fix it all. That's not going to work. If that's your expectation, the schools can't fix it by themselves. The community has got to get involved. The community has to start taking some of this seriously. The violence issues in particular, that's a community issue. The community needs to get involved in that. We can't handle that by ourselves. We are, and I made these comments at the last meeting, we are being asked to do more and more, and we keep doing more and more. We bring in consultants. We spend millions of dollars on consultants and bringing people in to tell us how to fix these things. But at the end of the day, people in the community have got to get involved, and other people other than the school district have to be held accountable for what's going on. So let's try to figure this out together. But that's not just us, that's everybody. That includes parents and guardians and grandparents and the criminal justice system and the police and everybody else in this community have got to get together and start doing something about the issues that are being brought into our schools.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Superintendent Report. Dr. Jarrett, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will keep my remarks fairly brief, but I also want to express my gratitude. I think we heard from the community, including from faculty and staff, as well as from parents, as well as concerned community members about the safety at Auburn, about the student code of conduct, about being proactive regarding safety issues regarding the pandemic, and certainly how we can solve some intractable long-term problems like attracting and retaining high-quality staff, and particularly African-American teachers. So I want to thank everyone who came out to speak and talk about those important issues. I do want to offer up that there are some really important items on tonight's agenda that do address some of these topics directly or indirectly. We know that staffing is a challenge, and there are two ways that we are attempting to address staffing on tonight's agenda. This is not meant to be a comprehensive solution, but I'm really proud to point out that in addition to our Rockford University pathway, which recruits current students to become teachers in our district, we are now adding a program that you'll see on tonight's agenda that is called the NIU LEAP program. And I want to challenge everybody that's listening to tonight's meeting. Dr. Brunson and her team are really excited to have our first cohort of paraprofessionals as well as other district employees. We have a cohort of almost 20 who are going to be our first group of people who are going to become special education teachers in the district in a very unique partnership with Northern Illinois University. That's going to have an immediate impact to go with some of our long-term investments on the composition and quality of our teaching force. I think that's just like I feel like a great place to look for great teachers is with our students. I also think a great place to look for teachers are with our current employees. Also really proud to point out that long-term investment in mental health and well-being of students is a big priority, and you're going to see that put into action with some of the federal ARP ESSER funds tonight, with 16 positions added to our district pending board approval through our Rosecrans partnership. We know students need more than just discipline. We also know that we need to make significant investments in their long-term mental health. And in terms of some of the really painful short-term issues, we know it's not enough, but it was mentioned in the comments. We are taking some of our federal dollars and upping the substitute teacher pay. We know teachers would much rather not have the money, but we are trying to acknowledge how difficult the challenge has been with internal subbing. We also are looking to make sure that we ensure our buildings are fully staffed to start the year. You'll see on tonight's agenda, we've added very significant increased hiring incentives for hard to fill positions. You'll see that that is on the agenda. So while there was a really good
cross-section of community concerns shared tonight. I'm also really proud that we have a really good cross-section of items that address some of those concerns in tonight's meeting. None of these are comprehensive solutions by themselves, but I do want to encourage us to continue to keep this very important dialogue going as a community. We have a huge investment that we are going to be making in long-term solutions like Mr. Rollins talked about in our community. And I do want to encourage community partners to be on the lookout for an upcoming request for proposal for community intervention opportunities. We know that our staff is working as hard as it possibly can to support our students during the school day and cover for each other with absences. We do have real opportunities for community partners to grow their impact with federal dollars that are flowing through the district. So please be on the lookout for community partners that could jump in and help. So thank you all for your very, very well-intended and powerful comments tonight. And I also want to encourage everyone to not only be on the lookout for what we are implementing in tonight's meeting, but we are making a very long-term commitment to making investments to the short-term problems of the pandemic, but also some of the much longer-term problems that the pandemic has created in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jarrett. We're now on to action items that proceeded through the Performance and Monitoring Committee. Item 5A, which is Board Policy 4.60, Operational Services, Purchase and Contracts. Is there a motion and a second to approve item 5A?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion and a second to approve item 5B, which is Board Policy 4.80, Operational Services, Accounting and Audits.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion about this? Seeing none, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to action items that proceeded through the Planning and Development Committee. Item 6A is the transportation contract with the ALC Student Transportation Solutions. Is there a motion and a second to approve item 6A?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you both. And any discussion? Mr. Siegel.
Why, yes, there is some discussion. It'll come as no surprise. And not to summon more work for Mr. Slife and Mr. Phillips, but it will be no secret to anyone who's been on the board with me that my druthers would be to bring all transportation services in-house, where we can have significantly more control over staffing levels and performance on our routes. I realize that it's a much bigger lift than just saying, let's just bring the service in-house, but it is something that I hope that we can continue to look at and maybe move towards doing so. Thank you.
Ms. Pearson.
So the word transportation in and of itself is an issue. And as much as I would love to see it to be, for it to be in-house as well, I think we don't know how long the pandemic is going to be, and we have to give that some consideration because we're going to get, it's going to be a problem. It could potentially, be a problem, whether we're in-house or not, and we may want to consider both given the issue at hand. Thank you.
Mr. Rollins.
It's probably worth explaining what this is about since we've actually got people here for once. So this is not actually has nothing to do with our regular transportation. We already contract out to do transportation for our special ed kids, for our homeless students, and some of the other early childhood. Those are the white Sunrise vans and trucks that you see running around town. And just like everybody else, they're short on staff. And so they have not been able to cover the routes that we've contracted with them, and we're short on that transportation as well. And so this is a company that comes to us with a potentially creative solution. And what they do is they go out in the community and they find people who have infrastructure, that have a van. Like, let's just take an example, a community center or a church or a not-for-profit that has a van, that has a bus, that has a licensed driver. They get those people certified to be, or validated, or whatever you call it, to be a driver for a school district, and then they will contract with us. So what this contract is doing is doing a contract with this company that's going to go out and try to work with community organizations in the community right now that already have a van or a bus and a driver that maybe isn't being used during the day, to try to meet our transportation needs particularly for the special ed kids, for the early childhood kids, for the homeless kids, because we're not meeting those needs right now. So that's what this particular contract is actually about.
Appreciate that clarification. All right. I'm going to ask the coordinator to call the roll.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
Mr. Rollins, are there any other follow-up items from your committee?
There are not.
Okay, thank you. We're now on to the consent portion of our meeting, which include items previewed by the board committee chairs during the committee of the whole meeting. They would include 7A, payroll, B, accounts payable, C, purchase orders, D, air travel, E, financial results from November 2021, F, monthly cash and investment report from November 2021, construction pay request log, there's 2 of them, one is G and one is H. Letter J, architectural engineering services contract with Larson and Darby Group. K, LinkedIn renewal. L, NIU LEAP program. M, Tier 1 early development instrument with UCLA. 8, the consent items would include PM Web project management software agreement with Integrated Facilities Solutions. B, Tier 1 basement build out for the transition and vocational program. C, Tier 1 Rosecrans agreement. Also include consented items 9 from the governance committee, which are the A, meeting minutes from the special board meeting on 12/14/2021. B, contract purchase orders. C, hiring incentives for hard to fill teaching positions. D, memorandum of understanding for pandemic relief planning time pay. E, the workers' compensation settlement agreement. And F, the freedom of information log. Do I have a motion and a second to approve those consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any consent items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Mr. Rollins.
8C.
That was the same one I was going to say.
8C was yours as well, Ms. Mohammed? Okay. So let's call the coordinator, could you please call the roll on the approval of the consent items not pulled?
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
Thank you. So I'll take a motion in a second for 8C, the Tier 1 Rosecrans agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And discussion on that? Mr. Rollins.
Well, there's been mention of this. I just thought I'd pull it to talk about it, but I did actually have one question. So this is the agreement with Rosecrans where we're going to have school-based behavioral health care services. Rosecrans, there's a grant that's going to pay for a couple of them, and then we're going to use federal funding to pay for the rest of them. And my real question is if anybody knows the answer. So they had identified a couple of people that were available immediately. They were going to try to find the rest of them. Do we have any idea where they're at on that in terms of actually staffing this once we approve it?
I don't have an update. We have a launch meeting on Friday, and there I'll learn more.
And how many total is it? Is it 16?
16. 3 of them are funded through the grant that Rosecrans has secured, and then we'll be funding an additional 13.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yeah, so my question was, I needed clarification on, is the contract with Rosecrans to bring in professionals to help with behavioral issues, or is this going to be some mental health support too?
Yes, all of the above. So they'll be providing some small group services, some one-on-one services. They'll be working with a team at the school to identify the students that need those tier 3 interventions.
So will staff be able to get any type of mental health support through this contract? Or if not, do we have any other things in place for that?
Staff are not the intended supports in this particular contract. We're doing this all based on student need. The teledoc item that's been pulled for this evening but will return is a 24/7, I believe, teletherapy solution for adults, making therapy, just much more accessible for all the adults that are on our benefits system.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other lights, I'll ask. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Pearson.
No problem. A couple of things. In lieu of the grant, and I understand that the staff is not a part of this, I want to just stress that it is important that we go above and beyond for our teachers. I can really empathize with the enormous amount of stress that they're under, given certain circumstances and what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I understand that students get 5 mental health days, and staff is expected to use their sick time, if I'm understanding this correctly, and that may be something that we want to consider in adding that support. I understand that the benefits and where it relates to teachers is dependent upon their union, and we do have union reps here tonight, so I'm not expecting HR to solve this problem. Let me clarify that. I just want to put this out here since we're on the subject of Rosecrans and mental health and how those funds will be used in order to help our district. So let me be clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, would you please call the roll on 8C, the Rosecrans agreement?
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
Thank you. We're now at the closed session consent agenda, which includes the following. 10A is the appointment of Ala Harnish as a 12-month director of bilingual. 10B, the residency hearing conclusion regarding student A residency dispute. 10C, the HR organizational report and addendum. 11A is GDM 4440. The expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement through the end of the 21-22 school year. B, the expulsion is held in abeyance, which is 4441. The expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon the expulsion and abeyance agreement through the end of the 21-22 school year. Item C was 4442, who will be expelled through the end of the 21-22 school year. The following EIAs: 8385, 8386, 8387, 8388, 8389, 8390, 8391, 8392, 8393, 8394, 8395, 8396, 8397, and 8398. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the closed session of consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any closed session consent items board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Ms. Mohammed.
11C.
Ms. Pearson.
It's pulled. Thank you.
Same one. Thank you. Can you please call the roll? There'll be no discussion because it's closed session. So could you please call the roll on all items other than 11C?
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 2 absent.
I'd entertain a motion in a second for item 11C.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And again, no discussion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
No.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
No.
The motion passes with 3 yeses, 2 noes, 2 absent.
Thank you. Do any board members wish to bring forward any further action, any action steps that have come of tonight's meeting or that you would like addressed? I don't think I have any written down. Dr. Jarrett, do you have anything? All right. If there's no further comment or agenda recommendations by the board, I'll take a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Same sign for opposed. We are adjourned at 7:56 p.m.